All right, check the mic. Instant reaction after seeing the Los Angeles Chargers get the win over the Minnesota Vikings. 37-10. Wasn't close the entire time, Sam. Chargers with an absolute beatdown. Herbert, nice efficient game. 18 of 25 for 227, 3 touchdowns. Kamadi, Vidal, 117 and a score. And poor Carson Wentz sacked 5 times and injured 12 to 20 times in this game.
Yeah, having already been injured coming into the game. Yeah, man, I was feeling sorry for Carson Wentz by the end of it. I mean, some of it is his fault, right? Like he's taken some hits that he probably shouldn't be taking.
Yeah.
But like the dude is beat up. He's coming into the game wearing a shoulder harness for the shoulder that's been injured for the last couple of weeks. Every time he goes down or gets hit or happens to graze anything with his arm, he's like, holding his shoulder and like grimacing in pain. And you're just like, no, do it again. Make him go again. Like, pull him out there. Get him off the field. Like, he's not healthy. He can't be playing. I mean, at some point, I think you owe it to the guy to just get him out of there. They didn't until right at the end. It was just a beatdown either side of the ball. I mean, it started off and the Vikings thought they had a pick six off miscommunication. They dialed up pressure. Herbert, there was a miscommunication on like a hot route with Ladd McConkey, I think. Isaiah Rodgers gets underneath it, scoops it, goes in, touchdown. The Vikings think they're up 7-0. And for the second week in a row, instant replay gets super granular. It's like, I think that ball twitched. Time to take that off the board. And from that moment on, everything went bad for Minnesota.
There were a bunch of injuries on both sides. We got to talk about that as well. The Chargers had been in a pretty good shape. The player, number 3, injured, couple other injuries, but Chargers played well. Look, they deserved it. They earned it. Love what Ladd McConkey did early on. Herbert had an absolute dime to him for a touchdown up the sideline. Chargers were very efficient on offense. Vidal ran hard, man. I mean, we're down to running back 3 or 4, depending on how you want to rank these things. And Vidal's was fantastic in this game. And so Vikings run defense has been an issue this year. Chargers took advantage of that. Herbert played a nice, clean game. And again, the defense did a really nice job against Carson Wentz. And the Vikings never got any rhythm offensively, barely handed the ball off. Maybe that should have been a bigger part of the offense, but Chargers kept them off balance defensively, and too many negative plays for Wentz as far as the sacks go, playing injured.
Yeah, I mean, in the first half, Justin Herbert was crazy. Against the blitz, he was something like 12 of 13 for a perfect passer rating and a crazy amount of yardage. And that's not even factoring in what he did by break and contain in the pocket. And every time he took off, like the Vikings defense was not apparently prepared for the idea that Justin Herbert might run at any point. And if he got out of the pocket, they had nobody there. And he would just either pick up yardage, or if they had one middle defender, he would just invite that guy to move towards him and then dink the ball right by him to a wide open guy over the middle. So, yeah, Herbert was absolutely destroying them in the first half. This vaunted Vikings defense, I mean, it can be run on, and it's been pretty vulnerable in the pass game the last few weeks as well. I keep using that line, like every now and again, you're going to find a guy one-on-one with Jeffrey Okudah. I mean, it happened, right? One-on-one, Ladd McConkey. Okudah was like toasted for 3 yards of separation, and I think tried to dive and tackle him before the ball arrived and was so badly beaten he couldn't even do that. So the Vikings defense got wrecked as badly as the offense did, which is kind of one of the talking points from this game. But I mean, Al Michaels referred to this as being skunked, and I think that's a really good way of describing it. Like, you encounter, hasn't happened to me, but I know people it's happened to. You encounter a skunk, you get skunked, and now you just stink, right? Everywhere. It gets everywhere. There's no washing it off. The Vikings got skunked in this game. They now reek of whatever just happened to them.
Got a shout out to Rondé Gadsden again, by the way, the rookie tight end out of Syracuse. Another big game for him, 5 for 77 and a score. He's been a big part of this Chargers team. We said on the preview show, I mean, I really thought the matchup was going to be on the outside. I was referencing more of the receivers, but just the pass game generally, Joe Alt's coming back, better pass protection for the Chargers, just winning that battle on the outside. Chargers absolutely won that game, won that battle as far as the pass game goes, and of course with the run game as well. Very good game for the Chargers offensively, and they had it in control. Look, it's one of those games too. You're trying to see where the excitement could come from. The Vikings got within 2 scores. and they did pick off Herbert on a pass. They, kind of a bad decision throwing back across his body. They score a touchdown after a fourth down illegal contact because, the league's got to emphasize that more and more every year. The third and fourth down illegal contacts, man, those get me just as a fan watching the game. It was like third and goal too from the 15 or whatever, or fourth and goal from the 12 or 13, whatever it was. It's like an automatic first down because you touched a guy beyond 5. But Vikings score a touchdown the next play. So they get within 2 scores, but they still couldn't make a stop. They could not stop the Chargers. Chargers go right down. They score again. And it was all but over at that point. They just kept throwing Wentz back out there to get beat up with a bad shoulder.
Yeah. I mean, there have been games this year where, it gets within a couple of scores and you're like, okay, this could become a game. At no point did this ever feel like it was going to become a game. The Chargers I don't think they punted in the game, did they? At all? Like, the Vikings did not stop them. They got the interception, obviously, which set them up.
The interception, yeah.
Right, which set them up for that touchdown, like short field, which was going to be settling for a field goal, ends up coming back and getting bailed out for a touchdown. But, like, they basically didn't stop the Chargers offense. So, like, at no point, even if somehow Carson Wentz had clicked into gear and, like, the crippled quarterback was able to suddenly start dealing, I mean, they were never going to stop the Chargers, so they were never going to claw back the deficit. And look, you're right. To bring up injuries is important because both sides got really battered. Darisaw goes down. Brian O'Neill was down. Suddenly the Vikings again are like without 3/5 of the offensive line. You can kind of say the same thing about the Chargers, though. I mean, Mekhi Becton goes down. They're banged up as well. They lost multiple players as well. And at some point, I think for the Vikings, like we've been using their injuries as an excuse this year a lot. Offensive line's been banged up, et cetera, et cetera. You start to look around the rest of the NFL and you're like, there's a lot of teams that are comparably banged up and they're handling it as bad as anybody.
So the player number 3 went down. Mekhi Becton. Tarheeb Still also went down, I believe, right, for the Chargers. And I think there was someone else in there. So painful game for both teams, right? You mentioned Darisaw and then Josh Oliver at tight end for Minnesota. At least they were out by halftime. So yeah, things to keep an eye on right there. People are asking about Kwesi. Is this all Kwesi's fault? Where does the blame go with Minnesota? I mean, look, I don't think the roster's in bad shape. I think
the injuries are a factor. Yeah. I mean, I will say, I said this to you before we came on, like JJ McCarthy is dealing with a really small sample size of game time, and who knows what he's going to look like long term. But the initial signs weren't exactly encouraging. And the more playing time that Dallas Turner gets, the less good he looks. That was a huge swing for Minnesota. They identified / were patient for JJ McCarthy. He was their guy. They came out of that draft with the quarterback, and then they were aggressive in going up after Dallas Turner. If they swung twice in that draft and missed with both first-round picks, and it's too early to say that, right? I'm not declaring that as a thing. But if that ends up emerging as the picture from that draft, that's the kind of swing that's really difficult to come back from.
Even just take JJ out of it, even if he's good, we're looking at multiple years of, Kwesi with Andrew Booth and Lewis Seen in his first draft. I mean, it's really Jordan Addison is the only impact player that they've drafted over the last couple of years. We'll see what happens with Donovan Jackson. I know the chat's low on him already. He's a handful of games into his career and has already battled injuries. The starting first-round guard. Who am I think? Oh, and then, Dallas Turner from last year. Yeah, I mean, if the drafts have been bad over the last few years for Minnesota, they've done a really good job, I think, adding NFL caliber talent, Jonathan Grenard's of the world, Andrew Van Ginkel. But I think their depth has hurt this year. And, look, losing guys like Harrison Phillips up front and not being able to stop the run and, spending a lot of money on defensive tackles like Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave, who aren't great against the run, and you're getting beat up in that area. That stuff's coming back to bite, I think, a little bit for Minnesota. But I still think it's a pretty good roster that has a ton of potential. And then at the end of the day, they're not getting quarterback play anything close to what they've gotten the last couple of years out of Kirk Cousins and out of Sam Darnold. So even if the roster's good, they've gotten one good quarter out of JJ McCarthy and then the uneven play of Carson Wentz. So that's why we are where we are, I think, if you're the Vikings.
Yeah, I mean, It's a combination of, I think they've been unlucky in a couple of different ways, and possibly also bad. And that's the issue. Like I think it's bad luck that they sort of trade. I think you could easily make a call either way, that trading or that letting Sam Darnold walk or keeping him was the right decision. I think you could argue that in either direction based off last season. 15 games of really good play, 2 utterly catastrophic, disastrous plays in the 2 most important games they played. I think it's perfectly fair to argue that in either direction. They decided to let him go, take that money, try and invest in the offensive line, which was arguably the reason that Darnold melted down in those 2 games, and get better that way. First round quarterback's already there. Let's move in that direction. They also did try and keep Daniel Jones. So it's not like they just said, bye-bye, Daniel, you have no value here. They tried to keep him. Daniel Jones thought he had a better path to the field in Indianapolis. Was apparently true. He got that job before he would have gotten it in Minnesota, even if the JJ McCarthy thing had gone the same way. So again, I think you can say that's reasonable process, even if the outcome was undesirable. They tried to rebuild the offensive line. They brought in, they paid a ton of money. They brought in these guys. You could question the Ryan Kelly thing, because that's a guy that has a history of concussions, and now he's got 2 more concussions and he's on IR. You could say that's something they should have seen coming, but they tried to completely overhaul this offensive line. And I think still yet to have the 5 guys that they expected to have at start any game. At least 1, 2, or 3 have been missing for every single game this year. That's unlucky. I mean, you tried to fix a thing you thought you had, and those guys just keep getting hurt. And then the bad is, if you traded up because you thought Dallas Turner was a Will Anderson type of player, right? You needed to get that guy, and he's not good. Not only did you trade up for him, which is not great, not only did you select him and he's not good, which is not great, you did it over Jared Verse, who looks like a superstar. So, like, that's bad in a variety of different ways. And then you can kind of make a similar argument with JJ McCarthy. Like, in this draft that looks like it may have been very quarterback strong, you managed to find a guy that might not be good. Now, again, super small sample size for McCarthy. It's too early to write him off, but you're at least concerned about that already, which is not good.
Yeah, I mean, again, JJ aside, you can question what they've brought in the draft in Minnesota. I want to finish on Minnesota. We'll touch on the Chargers again for a second. Minnesota sitting here, 3-4, now they haven't even played the Lions or the Packers yet. So they finished the season with both of those teams. They're going to Detroit this week. So you still have to play those 2 top teams in your own division. Still have to play the Bears again, who are 4-2. You got 1 more game against the AFC South, which happens to be the Ravens, which is probably a Lamar Jackson Ravens in 2 weeks. Just like we were talking about with Washington, right, where they're sitting there at 3-4, and they've got this tough stretch. It's another playoff team from last year at 3-4, dealing with a tough stretch where all of a sudden you're staring a 3-6, 4-7 start in the face, and the season could be over within a few weeks.
Yeah, I think Warren Sharp had a tweet earlier that the Vikings have had the easiest NFL schedule to date and have the hardest remaining schedule, based off. I think he does it on projected win totals is his thing. So I mean, that's what you're talking about. Like, this has been the nice stretch for this team, and they're under 500, and they don't have a quarterback yet, and the offensive line is a disaster, and the Flores defense is suddenly hemorrhaging yardage on the ground and in the air. I mean, it's all bad right now. So I do think that the only good news is that this team has a higher ceiling than that. Like, we know that they can play better than that, but they are facing a brutal schedule. And I mean, the Flores defense we know can play better. The offensive line, if it gets healthy, will be better. If that happens, they can run the ball better. None of it matters if they don't get better quarterback play. I mean, whether it's McCarthy, whether it's Wentz, whether it's is it Brosmer or Brosmer, whether it's the other rookie. I mean, the guy that looks like a knockoff version of Paxton Lynch. Like, if one of those guys doesn't show up and start playing good football, their season's already over.
All right, and for the Chargers, moving to 5-3, coming off a stretch where they had lost 3 out of 4, getting Joe Alt back was huge. Even if Becton goes down, just getting him back at left tackle is huge. And look, they, tough one against the Giants a few weeks back with some turnovers. They lose a close game. Lost to the Commanders when they had Jaden Daniels and looked like a slightly different team. Smoked by the Colts last week. So the Chargers having this weird season where early on they had a pretty strong win against the Chiefs in week 1, a nice win against the Broncos in week 3. So they've competed with some of the better teams, gotten beat up by one of the better teams. Maybe the Colts are just by far the best team in the NFL. Who knows? But yeah, the Chargers needed this one to get back on track. They've got the Titans, Steelers, and Jags coming up, and then the Raiders after a bye. They have a good opportunity to get back. And look, they're still 5-3. Like the Chiefs are still technically in third place in the AFC West with the Chargers with the tiebreaker. So whole lot of season still ahead for the Chargers and the division and all of their goals, still ahead of them, as the coaches like to say.
Yeah, and they're going to get people back. Marion Hampton's going to come back, and he looked fantastic before he got hurt and landed on IR. I think you're seeing that when the offensive line gets, somewhere near viable. I mean, remember, the first few weeks of the season, Justin Herbert looked like the best quarterback in the NFL. Then all of his offensive line got hurt. The entire thing fell apart. This game was that, right? Like the line was, Joe Alt was back. The line was at least passable against the good Vikings pass rush. And Herbert looked like scintillating. I mean, in the first half in particular, they couldn't touch him. They couldn't get pressure on him, really. They couldn't keep him in the pocket. They couldn't stop him carving up the blitz when he did send it, and he was stuck in the pocket. I mean, if Herbert plays like that, this team is really difficult to beat if they can just keep that level of supporting cast around him. They don't need to be 100% healthy. They just need to be closer than they have been. Gadsden emerging as that tight end target as well is a potentially really huge development for them because, we've talked about that receiving core. It's Ladd McConkey, and then it's not great after him. If you pivot away from, expecting the Quentin Johnsons, Keenan Allens, Trey Harris to be elite, and suddenly Gadsden is a real threat at tight end, that massively turbocharges things too.
Yeah, I mean, having just depth with the pass rush, with the pass catchers, with Quentin Johnston's had a really nice season, and some games you're going to need him as a deep threat. Ladd McConkey, giving him a few more targets than he was getting the first few weeks. A lot of potential there, like you said, as long as they're keeping Herbert upright and the pass protection was much better. Which, by the way, another, I don't want to say hallmark of the Flores defense. It always feels a little bit better early in the season, and then it seems like the league catches on. That also seemed to happen quicker this year for Minnesota.
Well, like if this is just a faster timeline than normal, then the Vikings are screwed. I mean, normally this happens like the last 4 weeks of the season, not after week 7 or whatever it is. If this is the timeline this year, I mean, they're in real trouble if that's the case.
Well, I thought we'd see a better game here tonight. Tough one for Wentz and the Vikings. Great win for the Chargers. Looking strong, looking dominant. 5-3 with a really nice path to get to 8-3 in a couple weeks heading into their bye. So be excited, Chargers fans. You're back on track. It's our live reaction. Chargers, Vikings, whole season ahead of you. Hit subscribe, hit thumbs up, do all the stuff on the way out. Appreciate everybody for tuning in.